I have fungus growing in my lungs.
Holy
And
shit.
I asked management, I said, do I need to leave? Because I don't want to be exposed to that. And she said, oh no, you're fine. I noticed that my hair like was falling out in like
Oh God.
so my mother is sick now because she stayed in my apartment
Oh
for 10
man.
days. I brought a note from my doctor after he reviewed the air quality test. It's not safe for you.
Imagine getting sicker and sicker and not understanding what it was until you discover that there's mold hidden in your air conditioning unit. Let's hear this caller's story. Lucy, you got some splaining to do. What's going on?
Well, I have this mold issue and just needing, you know, wanting direction as to how to go about navigating the process of submitting a claim, or I need an attorney actually to represent me because the responsible party is not willing or is not taking responsibility. And so I need to know what the next steps are. And I've gone through all of my testing, everything came up positive. I have fungus growing in my lungs.
Holy
And
shit.
if it wasn't for my mother visiting me from Hawaii and telling me your apartment is not good, I would not have known. I would still be there. So I
Wow.
went ahead in the process of, and I don't normally sound like this. This is one of the issues that I'm having is like I can't breathe. I'm yesterday I had a bloody nose. I mean, it's just all these things, medical issues that I am having to deal with now. I have no idea how to go about getting representation because it appears that nobody wants to take up toxic mold issues. So
It's a big problem, Lucy, and I'm sorry that you're having to deal with this because the prevalence of toxic mold cases is crazy. People are dealing with these issues left, right, and center, and the fact that you've had it, I've had a number of close friends who have gone through this apartment complexes that just didn't care. And now they're dealing with potentially lifelong issues related to their lungs and breathing and overall health. Let me ask a couple questions. What kind of apartment were you in when this was happening?
so it's a brand new build, and when I moved in, I was the first tenant there. So it would have been 3 years in August. And from the get go, before I even moved in, there was a ceiling leak. There was like water dripping. And, they took care of it, they painted it, and they said it was fine. Um, and it was a 2 bedroom, it was new.
Yeah.
And I just chalked it up. But then throughout the 3 years, there were other leaks, but it was not my unit. They always came to check mine because they thought it was mine.
Uh huh.
So I was in between floors, I think it was 4 story and I was on the second floor. So they always thought it was me, but it was never from me. I lived alone and in a 2 bedroom, but I never used, the other room or anything like that in the bathroom. Just so happened last November, I was having company from Hawaii and I was doing prepping and I walked into the bathroom. I'm like, what the heck is that? It was black and I was like, oh no, because I have an autoimmune condition.
Where
And
was the mold? Tell us where you saw the mold in the bathroom.
it was on the ceiling and it was coming down the wall. So I thought it was somebody upstairs because that's where it was. That's where the leak, I had the leak before, it was the upstairs neighbors.
When you said they took care of it and painted it, did they just paint it, or was there construction crews? Because a lot of real estate people, not a lot, I don't want to say that, but sometimes it's just easier to paint over the problem versus fix the problem. And when you're talking about water, that's a full-on plumbing thing or a roofing thing. And if you didn't see like a ton of contractors come through, all they did was paint. So did you see
No,
any contractors?
oh yeah, they hired. So first they came and wiped it up with bleach, and then it came back within like a day or two, and then it was 10 days before. So when that didn't work, they had a crew come out. I said, "Look, you guys have to take care of this because I can't do this." And when they cut out, the wall, well, they had to actually cut out the entire wall and the back of the toilet plus part of the ceiling because there was a leak in the pipe and there was wood damage and the insulation was all black. And so they did the work. It took a couple days. The problem was I asked management, I said, do I need to leave? Because I don't want to be exposed to that. And she said, oh, no, you're fine. They did the work. But the other problem was that they didn't follow protocol and they did not seal the construction area. Therefore, they were tracking the insulation back and forth, back and forth. And when they were done, I raised a question with the main maintenance guy. I said, that wood is still black. I go, you guys are going to put a new wall and that's black. I go, what about all the other black insulation? Are you going to remove that?
And what did they do?
No, they didn't do it. They left the rotted wood in there and they didn't take out the rest of the black insulation. They took out some around it. They didn't take the rest of it. So I have pictures of everything.
So I want to make sure I understand the timeline. This was back when you first moved in?
No, this was just in November.
Okay, got it. So did you ultimately move out after that moment?
No, because I thought everything was fine when they did that. I was experiencing sickness from, last summer, but I didn't attribute it to anything. I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know why I'm feeling sick. I mean, I wouldn't be able to get out of bed for like 3 to 5 days before I don't know how prevalent the mold was. I don't know where the mold was, if there was any other place in my building, because we always had leaks somewhere. So I didn't attribute it. I never thought about anything like that until I saw the mold. So leading up to November, I noticed that my hair was falling out in like
oh God.
droves. I kept going to my primary. I said, something's wrong with me. I don't know what's wrong. I said, I'm having intrusive thoughts. This is not me. This is not normal. So they fixed it, but I was still sick and my family they thought I was like a hypochondriac because I was like, I can't get out of bed. I just cannot. I am in pain. I cannot get out.
Are you still in the apartment now?
Oh, no. So I had when my mom came in April, and she told me she stayed with me for 10 days. So my mother is sick now because she stayed in my apartment for 10 days. So she went back to Hawaii and she's like, I am really, really sick. So she's having all these tests done. So she said, you need to get your apartment checked. So I had an air quality he's Texas licensed. I mean, he's,
okay.
And he immediately, as soon as I got the report, and he asked me certain questions, and I said, well, no, they didn't seal it off. He goes, they didn't. And I go, no, they were coming in and out. I mean, they put, plastic over my sink and, stuff like that.
When was the lease for this toxic apartment? What time period did that run?
Well, it wouldn't have been over until next year, but they let me off my lease.
And then why did they let you out of it? Why did they terminate it?
Because I brought a note from my doctor after he reviewed the air quality test. He says it's not safe for you.
And how much do you think you've spent so far in medical bills?
Over $5,000.
Okay. Do you have a sense in talking to your doctors about kind of how long and how much you'll have to spend on treatment in order to get past this condition?
18 months.
Wow.
Is there any neighbors? If you talk to neighbors, do they have the same troubles?
I try to do that. And actually, I have been looking online to see if they were renting my unit out because apparently it's also in my HVAC. And I mean, I had to dump everything. I literally left when I got the doctor's note on April 26th. I left. I couldn't stay in there because then it explained everything, why I couldn't breathe and why I couldn't, but it seems like my symptoms are worse now, even though I'm out of there. I'm in a new place and I don't have anything that I had in that apartment. I refuse to bring anything,
Well, sometimes
into.
sometimes those symptoms they linger and they grow even if you're out of the environment once they've hit a critical mass. It's not uncommon in a mold case, so I wouldn't put too much stock into that you're feeling worse later.
Mhm.
But you know, you kind of hit on one of the concerns earlier, but about trying to find an attorney and how there's not a lot of folks taking these cases on, and
No.
I've known that. I mean, we get a lot of calls in our even in our individual practices about that, and part of the issue is because there's a wide range. People will come in and say, "Well, I've got black mold," and they'll show you pictures, and you're like, that's actually not even mold, right? Versus
Right.
some folks like you, which have very clear evidence, have done a lot of things, have the air quality tests, have the medical review and the results, and have spent money on medical care, and so it's a different level. What we're going to definitely do here is help get you some attorneys that have dealt with these issues and that have dealt with this
Hmm.
severity of issue. But one of the
Okay.
things, at the very least, is getting a very clear understanding of what is it going to take to get you better. And talking to your doctor enough to know, okay, here's what the treatment plan is going to look like, your mother's treatment plan as well, and understanding, okay, this is the world of how much we've been harmed, and what can we do to at least make sure that your medical expenses are taken care of. Also, an
Right.
inventory of the items that you had to lose because they were covered in the mold, because they didn't seal the things, or they were in that environment, right? Those are going to be things that where you can start kind of putting a picture around what your loss is, and then being able to go back to the apartment either through a lawyer or directly and say, this is how much your crappy, moldy, shitty new build building cost, and your failure to deal with it in the right way. That's my
Right.
off the top of mind thought, about kind of the next steps, since you've done so many of the steps most people don't take. But Ryan, what are you
I was
thinking?
going to say I would look into who's the owner of the company, or who's the owner of the complex, who's the
Oh, I know all that. I'm from California and I worked with attorneys.
yeah.
I worked in the C-suite and I'm a paralegal and I did my research. So I've done all the legwork. I've chronicled everything. I've videoed. I have pictures. I have every day the symptoms that I have. I have, you know, I've done it.
Well, I just
It's
say, like,
in a binder.
when it comes to property management, it's most people just assume that, oh, it's an apartment complex, it's owned by this giant conglomerate, but the reality is property management it's different with all complexes, and usually when an apartment complex is just owned by a group of investors who are just everyday people. And that's what people don't realize. But because with everyday people come with, hey, liabilities, and
Right.
hey, they're liable. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm not an attorney. I'm just saying, you know, so that's why I was asking, if you know who they are, go after them.
I do.
Bill, what do you think next steps are here?
I think what it's going to be is, it's been unfortunate that you've reached out to some of the attorneys that haven't been the right people. That's not uncommon. There's a lot of attorneys and they all do different things.
Mhm.
With some of the facts that we've talked through today, and the amount of evidence that you have in these circumstances, I've got some good idea for attorneys to send your way that you can talk to and find one that would be a good fit. What are your thoughts,
Oh,
Josh?
I just
oh,
spent.
that's. Oh, were you asking me? I'm sorry.
Oh, he's saying what my thoughts are. We're gonna get you those people. I spent the last 8-10 minutes looking at Reddit and people talking about similar issues and how they discovered it and wow. Wow, this is a pretty.
It's
This happens
crazy.
to a lot of people. It's something I
Yeah.
just never really thought of. I want to really thank you for calling in, Lucy, because there's going to be a lot of people that watch this and go, "Oh, I need to go check my HVAC system. I need to go check my air conditioners. I need to check, my air quality." And part of the reason why I need to check is how hard it's going to be. Like, we're going to try to find you a lawyer, but it's not going to be easy, right? It's not going to be easy to get justice for this. It's not going to be easy. Which is why I want to say,
unless there's exposure and people, unless there's public exposure, I mean, and I've run through the gamut. It's like, it's almost unjustifiable, like it's
Right.
really unconscionable, like and people like me who have a pre-existing condition. And I told them in my very first email, when I said, I have an autoimmune condition, I cannot be compromised. Now my body can't fight both.
yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, bloody nose one day, I mean, it's crazy.
It's here's the other part too, when finding an attorney, is one who understands that condition as well, because it's got to
Right.
be the combination of both of those, how those impact your case, and really what are some of the fast things that can be done. I mean, in some of these mold cases, especially with how much evidence you have, being able to put together that and even go to small claims court yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got a judge who's going to be able to look at it. Now, they could appeal that, they could go to the district court, that kind of thing. So it's not always the best situation in terms of getting a final result. But a place like this, worrying about bad reputation and getting a case and a judgment and people finding that online, are very, very, very motivated to try and get these things done the right way if they feel the right pressure.
Yeah.
No, and I understand that I understand, because, like I said, I came from the, sue happy state of California. So I know how that works. And, I just know the inner workings
I mean,
in the
speaking
C-suite.
of Sue Happy, if there's one, couldn't there be more? And then the whole class action lawsuit, and couldn't that be a thing?
It could be. It's pretty hard.
I
But
thought about that. I thought about that because, I've also read, I was on Reddit and I was reading, and I'm like, I can't believe, like, these people, there's no help. How can that be? It doesn't seem like, people are going through this alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are doing that, and I want to echo Josh that a lot of folks are going to listen to what you've done here, and they're thinking, well, I don't know, should I go get a test? I don't know, should I go to the doctor? Go to the doctor, get the test.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
No.
It's not cheap. But it's also not cheap.
Death,
Years of lung
death
issues.
is pretty expensive.
Right.
Death is expensive.
Right.
And my recommendation, the mold specialist doctor that I'm seeing is the hyperbaric. And that is, I'm just going to say, it's $330 per 90-minute session. And I need 40 hours. That's $12,000.
Wow. Yeah, so that's you're already on the right track to know exactly what it's going to take, and with that in mind, it helps you to get an understanding of what really can be done here, and to go against these folks and get back at least your medical expenses. But thank you for calling in today, Lucy. Do you feel like you've got a little bit more direction, and we're going to send you some of those resources? Did it feel better to talk through it a little more?
Yes, I am grateful.
And
I'm grateful that I even found you folks. I don't even know how I did it, but I said, I'll do it.
Well, we thank you so much for calling in and sharing your story with everybody. We wish you a
Okay,
great
great.
rest of your day.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy.
Bye-bye.
I'm throwing all my air conditioners away. I'm throwing them. I'm buying new ones every day. I
What's
saw
the
all those
alternative?
pictures.
You're gonna live outside where it's raining, and then there's mold outside too.
I was in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago. The weather was like room temperature the entire time. I'm just gonna live there.
I was in the Sahara Desert, and it was dry as fuck.
So when you do these
so
calls,
bad.
because I always have this, like, are they full of shit, or they? And I know you have to, like, hey, you just take everything with a grain of salt of maybe it's truthful, but I was like, is this a Karen or is this not a Karen? Is this Karen? Is not a Karen? But I mean, she won me over in the end, but the whole time I'm like, is she a hypochondriac?
It's plausible.
It's plausible, but I gotta tell you, most of the folks that I get a call from or I hear about, they're like, yeah, I haven't done any testing, but like,
that's what won me over.
I sent a grainy 8 megapixel photo to my mom, and she thought it was black mold because she showed it to her dog, and the dog barked twice.
Yeah.
Right, and you're like, okay, I mean, I believe the dog. The dog is,
Yeah.
smart, but not that
Smart dog.
smart. But
Yeah.
the dog can't see in color, whatever.
Yeah, but it's the fact that she's done this, she's done this, she's done this, she's done this. She's either a very, like, affected, I don't know. I mean, it seemed like she's done a research because she really is a victim.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Put your air conditioner and mold horror stories in the comment section, and reach out to us if you got a better solution than what we said.
Yeah.
This one sounds like it's one of those things that just kind of sucks. I wish every call had a happy ending, but this one might not.
No, but we're gonna get. There's some really good attorneys out there that it's hard to sift through the noise of who's right, finding the right person. We're gonna send some resources over. But if you liked Lucy's story and you want to hear more of it, hit the like button, hit subscribe. There's gonna be more calls coming. But thanks for joining us on the Barely Legal Show.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to be here for you when you need that cheap date.